My name is Lorna Corbetta, and I'm going to be telling you today about my adventures in researching artist books for my graduate degree last year at Stanford. Let's start. A repurposed Victorian novel, a copper box, a painted poster. What do these items have in common? They are all objects that are part of a unique genre of book and art that artists, scholars, and librarians call artist books. The object on the left is a page from the work A Human, a project begun in 1965 by British artist Tom Phillips. Phillips, originally a sculptor and painter, found an obscure Victorian novel, The Human Document, written in 1892 by William Matlock. Phillips proceeded to paint, collage, or ink over every single of the 367 pages, leaving just enough text to create a new story. On the right, the book-like object is actually the wrapper of an avant-garde work called La prose du Transsibérien et la petite Gironde de France, printed in Paris in 1913. It is both a poem and a painted illustration, conceived and produced by poet Blaise Cendrars and artist Sonia Delaunay as the first simultaneous book, which refers to simultaneous contrast of colors. Once opened, it becomes a 6-foot poster. The box in the center is a work by the Chilean artist Maria Veronica San Martin, and it's entitled Make the Economy Scream. We will look at this work more in depth later on. As you can see from my examples, artist books are uniquely challenging yet rewarding objects that raise complex questions. Exploring these complexities as they manifest in university spaces, particularly the library and the classroom, my thesis is entitled The Lives of Artist Books, Meaning, Materiality, and Discovery. Within this focus on meaning, materiality, and discovery, it was the discovery bit that struck me as most important and most problematic. As a librarian, I had seen some artist books but did not know much about them. When I finally tried to get my hands on one, I was surprised to learn how hard they were to find. This process of discovery led me to further investigate these objects known as artist books. The Italian book artist Angelo Lorenz best explained the central problem of the genre. Quote, "Artist books should come with a warning label. Once you know what they are, be warned, you have the burden trying to explain them to others." End quote. And now that burden falls to me. In the background, you can see La Prose, the wrapper on the left, the 6-foot poster laid out, and a detail of the poem and the painting, which is called pochoir or stencil painting. First then, what is an artist book? It is a specific genre of art and book that is physically a book or a notionally book-like form that is an artwork in its own right. Therefore, an artist book is neither a collection of an artist's work nor critical writings about art. Collectively, artist books can be almost anything, made of anything, and mean anything. There are also as many definitions of artist books as there are objects themselves, not to mention varied spellings and terms to signify them. Artist books are sometimes referred to as book art, book as artwork, bookwork, artist bookworks, book objects, artist books, or artist books with no apostrophe. And don't get me started on the apostrophe. 4 decades on, and people are still discussing the placement of the apostrophe. I should say that the most accepted term today is artist book with the apostrophe after the S, and that this is the form I consistently use and hope to promote. Meanwhile, the debate over the definition has lasted for several decades. It seems the only thing that book art experts and critics can agree on is that there is no one definition. Since artist books often take the form of the codex, that is, a sequence of leaves or components that are bound with a spine or connector, and we'll later see other forms than that, they are most often housed in libraries and archives. How do librarians and art library resources define artist books? Oxford Art Reference states, and I quote, "Artist books constitute a highly heterogeneous and malleable genre which so far has resisted any straightforward categorization and classification. That seems simple. The oft-cited art resource, Grove Art, proposes, and I quote, broadly understood, an artist's book is any work of original art created in the book format, end quote. Also simple. What does Harvard's Research Guide to Artist Books have for us? They say, quote, the term may be applied to a wide range of book objects, combining art making, bookbinding, literature, and sculpture, influenced by many avant-garde, conceptual, and contemporary movements. Okay, now it's getting a little more complicated. Book scholars also weigh in. Betty Bright, one of the founders of the renowned Minnesota Center for the Book, has written, and I quote, simply stated, an artist book is a book made by an artist, and every aspect of the book, from content to materials to format, must respond to the intent of the artist and cohere into a work that is set in motion with a reader's touch. And the foremost scholar, artist book scholar, Joanna Drucker, insists, quote, artist books take every possible convention of bookmaking, every possible ism of mainstream art and literature, every possible mode of production, every shape, every degree of ephemerality, and every archival durability. In other words, an artist book is boundless or hard to define. To help bring some clarity to the genre of artist books, I will show you 7 characteristics of artist books and corresponding examples. One of the main identifiers of artist books is that of artistic control. We first see this in William Blake's books, such as Songs of Innocence and Experience, 1789, where he has created the concept, painted the illustrations, written the copy, then printed and bound each book. A century later, William Morris established his Kelmscott Press, which produced, among other books, the works of Geoffrey Chaucer, 1896. Morris controlled almost every aspect of his book production. He designed the font, the layout, he chose the paper, the bindings, and the ink. The only thing he did not do himself was the etchings, which were done by his close friend and collaborator, Edward Burne-Jones. Finally, we see here a livre d'artiste, which is in the tradition of French fine press books. It is jazz, created by Henri Matisse and published by Teriad in 1947. Matisse himself did all of the coloring, all of the writing, so apart from the distribution, almost all the artistic charge was his. Most artists today take full artistic control of their projects. Note the integration of text and image in each of the books. The integration is important to artist books. Opposing this aesthetic of the livre d'artiste is the democratic multiple, or mass-produced book. Their purpose was to supplant the gallery system. They are often conceived and produced to circulate without museums and the elite art world establishment, and to find their way into bookstores and literally into the hands of the public. Published in 1963, Ed Ruscha's 26 gasoline stations is often cited as the first of modern book arts. It is a simple 48-page staple booklet of 26 black and white photographs of gas stations from LA to Oklahoma along Route 66. It is about 4 inches by 6 inches, and in 1963 it sold for $3.50. I've seen a copy for $18,000 now. The second example is Culture Hero Masterprint, Jill Johnston Exposed, a special 1970 issue of the short-lived art tabloid Culture Hero, published by artist Les Levine from 1969 to 1971, printed in 28 rainbow-rolled lithographs and bound in corrugated cardboard with 3 screw fasteners. Beaux-Arts Library at Stanford has a copy of this complete with the cardboard cover and the screws. This issue was dedicated to Jill Johnston, who was the Village Voice critic from 1959 through the 1970s, and wrote on Fluxus happenings and the counterculture downtown New York art scene. At the time, this cost 35 cents. Stanford's copy is valued at nearly $2,000. Rather than the democracy implicit in the democratic multiple, the reality is that these mid-century counterculture publications have ended up back in the very museums they tried to avoid and have become symbols of elite and inaccessible art. Artist books can be playful and transformative and often, intentionally or not, subversive. Upsetting the form of the book or turning it upside down is almost a requirement of an artist book. The first example, Local Conditions, 100 Views of Mount Rainier at Least, by the artist Chandler O'Leary, was published in 2010. This work is playing with the book on several levels. It is an homage to Hokusai's Mount Fuji series. Its bookness is packed into a box and then taken apart into 100 different pieces, and it acts as a stage set or a stereoscope. The photo book Fireflies by Barbara Bosworth, done in 2018, is in the form of a scroll which unfurls to more than 12 feet and incorporates photos of the same field of fireflies at different times of day. Finally, these bookends make up the last issue of an artist book periodical called The Thing. 34 objects by artists, writers, musicians, or filmmakers were released over the course of 10 years, 2007 to 2017. Each is an everyday object that somehow incorporates text. The subversive nature of the artist book can be attributed to factors in the social fabric of the time. Sometimes artist books play on the senses. This book, Mars, 2012, is a unique handmade book measuring 14 inches by 18 inches with a cover infused with spices, including cayenne, saffron, and turmeric. The book is also a meditation on Mars the planet, Mars the Roman god of war and war in general, and the battlefield of Gallipoli during World War I. The artist who created Mars, Marshall Weber, in 2012, used burnt mustard pigment to evoke the deadly mustard gas used during World War I. The artist was inspired by evidence from NASA's Land Rover Curiosity that there was organic life on Mars. Weber created a sense of landscape, time, a moment in past history, and by using the senses of touch, smell, and vision, it can take the reader to a new level of experience and to a new kind of encounter with the materiality of the book. Another hallmark of an artist's book is intentionality. That is, the idea that the artist or author is intentionally creating an object that is meant to be moving or beautiful or disturbing or pick your emotion. Activist artist books such as Make the Economy Scream by Maria Veronica San Martin, 2017, is one such work in which San Martin intentionally uses provocative language and fragile materials to evoke the horror of the disappeared in Chile 1970s. The copper box contains portraits of the faces of people who disappeared immediately after the military coup in 1973. The portraits are made with charcoal painting and gel medium on plastic sheets. These portraits are so fragile and friable that we have not even dared look at them all. These portraits of victims are wrapped in a handkerchief, much like the ones used at funerals. The use of the copper to construct the container for the images refers to how Nixon and Pinochet made the economy scream by decreasing the price of Chile's prime raw material export, copper, in order to facilitate the coup against President Allende. Artist books such as this one force people to confront uncomfortable subjects and conversations. A second example of an intentional book is one we have seen before, Tom Phillips' A Human. Here's the cover of the book, which looks much like any other book. Here's the title page with his signature. But as we peruse the pages, we can see the variety of art styles and techniques that he used to efface or alter the existing text to create his own version of the story. This work demonstrates the concept of the palimpsest, That is a piece of writing that has been written on top of another piece of writing that has been obliterated. The original work is a one of a kind, but for Phillips, he went on to publish 6 different editions. Artist books can be unique one-offs, small edition runs, or even mass-produced, but Phillips' work is unusual in that it was born unique and became more common. Phillips himself said, quote, "I plundered, mined, and undermined its text to make it yield the ghosts of other possible stories, scenes, poems, erotic incidents, and surrealist catastrophes which seemed to lurk within its wall of words," unquote. At that same year, the Washington Post called it one of the most winning and witty artistic experiments of recent time. It began life as a handmade unique book, but it evolved into a commonplace book that just about anybody can have. This is precisely supplanting the gallery. Artist books want people to engage with their books, to interact with them and touch them. This haptic quality can be seen in different types of artist books. For example, Superstring Theory, the Theory of Everything, created by Candace Hicks in 2015, is a fabric book made of canvas and thread, all the text and illustrations embroidered onto the cloth. It is a large book measuring 18 inches by 14 inches, which makes holding it as a book a bit of a problem. It mimics the look of a drugstore composition book, except for its size and feel, subverting the act of reading. This page I'm showing you is an homage to Stefan Mallarmé's iconic work, the image underneath, Un coup de dé, written in 1897 and published in book form in 1914. Its intimate combination of free verse and unusual typographic layout anticipated the 20th century interest in graphic design and concrete poetry. Above all, artist books force the reader to think about the act of reading. This first work is Volute, 2008 by Laura Waite. It is one of an edition of 3. Solar plate intaglio printing were overprinted with colographs and woodcuts. Paste painting and ink writings complete the pages. The whole is bound in the drum leaf style with a calf leather spine. I inundate you with these details to point out that the materials, styles, techniques, and bindings used in artist books can be important factors. The title is a play on volitude. Snails in the text and illustrations use the spiral shape, which makes reading it a physical activity rather than a passive one. A second work is a page from a book called Hokusai Pop-Ups, created by Courtney Watson McCarthy in 2016. This image is of the bridge, and you can see the waves, the fishermen, the bridge, etc. But to read it, you have to stand up and move around the book. A third example is called Cabaret Voltaire, published in 2015 by San Francisco artist Howard Munson. It is in an edition of 3, and Stanford holds the first copy. The cool thing about this one is that it is both an accordion book as well as a pop-up book, mixing 2 different techniques. It was inspired by the Dada artists who gathered at the Café Voltaire in Zurich, Switzerland in 1917. It was a refuge from the surrounding war in a neutral country. The cafe attracted artists, writers, musicians, and poets. Outrageous happenings were the nightly entertainment with poetry readings and theater. See how Munson relays the wild and crazy happenings with the various colorful characters strung along the accordion. All 3 of these works pose a different shape and make us rethink how to read. Many of the artist books you have just seen fit into multiple categories. Most artist books are haptic or meant to be touched. Most are done with intent. Many subvert the form of the book, and all of them make the reader and viewer think about the act of reading. We've established that artist books are meant to be handled and interacted with, and I've been telling you about the sensory and tactile nature of them. In keeping with that philosophy, I'm going to take apart a book not in real time, but in slides. This book is called Enumerations by Stephanie Gibbs. Gibbs is an emerging Los Angeles book artist whose work is of the moment. This piece was published in 2 editions in February 2019. First off is the clamshell box with an old-fashioned punch card on top. Many artist books utilize clamshell boxes not only because they usually are beautiful to look at, but are also practical in that they are hinged on its spine for easy access to the contents. 2 diskettes contain programs relating to engineering, computer science, and the humanities, representing the broad range of uses to which computers are now applied. I always point out to students that the shape of that diskette has been the icon in computers for saving documents. Magnetic core memory diagram circuit board is an embroidery sampler to demonstrate the bridge of textiles and computers. The slide rule sample is based on a design of 20th century models. A slide rule can be considered a form of external memory or early computer. This small booklet is a primer on base 10, binary, hexadecimal, and Roman numeral counting systems. Web programmers represent color in the HTML language by using 6-digit code representation. These 6 digits are hexadecimal numbers, which, when encoded in binary, correspond to specific color hues. And also within the clamshell is the book Enumerations. The text of this book is the note in which Ada Lovelace, the mathematically trained daughter of Lord Byron, describes Charles Babbage's analytical engine. This first computer was based on Jacquard looms, and the note references a specific encyclopedia article on loom technology. The text is printed on punch cards with trigonometry screen prints and then interleaved with archival graph paper. 24 punch card leaves and 14 graph paper leaves make up the book. In writing about this book, Gibbs herself said, "Over the past few years, the history of women in computer science and mathematics has been explored across a range of resources in popular culture, from the computers in the movie Hidden Figures to the explorations of Ada Lovelace and Charles Babbage in a graphic novel by Sidney Padua, to the inventions of Hedy Lamarr, an actress who decamped to technology." Gibbs shows her fascination with math, language, and numbers as developed throughout history and explored in the fields of philosophy and culture, demonstrating different aspects of combining ideas of memory, craft, and technology into one book project. Demonstrating this particular book in Silicon Valley is particularly intriguing because it puts into context Silicon Valley's place in history, and it's a meditation on technology, where it came from, and women's place within it. We have seen that artist books can come in all shapes and sizes, any materials, any content, any form, and this makes them elusively uncategorizable. Therefore, they remain hidden from scholars and students. If they cannot be defined, they cannot be found, and if they cannot be found, they cannot be used in the classroom pedagogically. Artist books might be specialized objects that only artist book scholars would care about, but in reality, they have tremendous value because they are so many things at once, and because they have value, we need to be able to find them more easily. In this small sampling, we have also seen the great variety and interdisciplinary possibilities of artist books. For a long time, artist books have been considered a niche form of artistic production, but because they bring together so many elements of art and book, they have incredible potential as a pedagogical tool. Thank you.